Sarah Mitchell was poised to receive the cruelest hand on the blood-stained Wyoming Territory plains in 1868. She lay broken in, her house blazing, after being beaten, shot, and left to die by settlers who saw her homestead as a prize. But destiny had other intentions. Hoofbeats boomed across the grassland as she closed her eyes and accepted her final moments. After swearing never to let anyone inside his heart, Luke Hawkins was ready to breach his own rules. Rescue led to a love story that became an American frontier legend. Before we resume, tell us where you're listening, and if this tale impacts you, subscribe because I have something special for you tomorrow. The late afternoon sun cast deep shadows on Luke Hawkins' aged face as he led his horse into the Wyoming grassland. 3 years after Appomattox, war memories tormented him. Gunfire, dying men, and a Confederate captain's bars. Everything followed him like ghosts across his new frontier house. His ranch in a remote region 20 miles from civilization was his refuge. Among the wild grass and hills, he'd created tranquility. The locals just knew him as the quiet rancher who traded meals and kept to himself. None knew of his nightmares of men he'd killed in Virginia's bloody fields. 3 gunshots and quiet interrupted his brooding. Hunting with gunfire was common here, but these shots were unusual. They were too deliberate and measured. Luke immediately reached for the Colt at his hip, a sign of years. He heard town rumors about Blackwood settlers out of survival. The vicious James Blackwood led them through the territory, claiming anything they wanted. Some claimed territorial government documents, others reported destroyed homes and missing relatives. Luke avoided such issues. He learned during the battle that picking sides only made things worse. Something seemed strange as he steered his horse toward the gunshots. He felt something in his gut for the first time since the battle, as the black smoke rose in the afternoon sky. A mix of terror and obligation he swore to leave. 2 Rivers, his best friend and sometimes traitor, the nearby Shoshone camp warned him last week. White settlers bring storm clouds, the native hunter said, his black eyes serious. They speak peace with twisted tongues, yet want violence. Luke left. The warning was too concentrated on his isolation to worry about territorial issues. However, as he topped the hill overlooking the Mitchell homestead, he realized his neutrality was over. He had to face a fact he'd been avoiding below. Frontier violence was similar to combat bloodshed. He departed. A little farmhouse burned fiercely, reaching skyward like desperate fingers. Based on their clothes, several victims lay dispersed over the yard, perhaps agricultural laborers. Despite the debris, he saw movement. She was crumpled but still moving, her clothing bloody. Luke's war-trained eyes saw fresh hoofprints moving west, discarded shot casings glinting in the sun, and the methodical attack pattern. This was no random frontier brutality. The execution was interrupted. He now controlled the woman's fate. Every instinct told him to ride on and keep his carefully crafted solitary existence, yet he watched her struggle. Some choices aren't options, Luke Hawkins realized for life below. These moments determine a man's soul. As consciousness flickered like a guttering light, Sarah Mitchell tasted copper and ash. World swims in and out of focus. She saw the burning wreckage of her home one instant and darkness the next. She felt detached, like she was floating above the blood-soaked soil where she lay. She had shockingly clear recollections between life and death. The giggle Thomas made when he swung her around on their wedding day 2 years before. His eyes showed pride as they first stood on their land. His calloused hands held the deed. They plotted their future in the calm dawn. Despite mugs of warm coffee, Thomas was gone, feverish last winter. She buried him under the ancient oak tree James Blackwood's soldiers had used for cover when they attacked. They came at daybreak like any other, but they brought gunfire. It lands. Blackwood told Mrs. Mitchell, his shadow falling over her kitchen floor, that she was settleable. Your claim isn't worth paper. He just grinned when she showed him the properly filed and approved deeds. The smile was wolf-like, not human. First came the beating, a man she refused to sign away her land. These cultured men with nice clothes and vicious eyes were poor marksmen. Maybe they meant to let her suffer and die slowly as her home burnt. Sarah heard hooves approaching, possibly Blackwood's men finishing what they'd started, through the anguish. Her body wouldn't move to crawl to the burning house's cover. Sound came closer, then stopped. She heard boots crunch on hard-packed ground near her head. "Ma'am," the voice was foreign, low, hesitant, and southern-sounding. "Oh my God." Though gentler than imagined, Rough hands turned her carefully. Sarah pulled her eyes open and saw a storm-gray glare as unknowable as her experiences. However, his eyes showed kindness she hadn't seen since Thomas. It wasn't clear what she whispered, "Don't leave me," or "Don't hurt me." The stranger hardened as he surveyed the sight. Before looking at her, he checked his hip gun for threats. "I'm Luke Hawkins," he said. "I have a ranch 10 miles north. If I get you there, can you wait?" Sarah wanted to thank him or warn him about Blackwood's men. In her peripheral vision, darkness was seeping in. Luke taking off his coat to throw around her shoulders was her last sight. He had terrible determination. "Stay. With me, ma'am." His voice sounded distant. Sarah felt lifted gently as consciousness faded. Her frigid limbs warmed up for the first time since the attack. She couldn't tell if it was death's grip or salvation's promise. One notion lingered as hoofbeats lulled her to sleep. She survived. Perhaps fate hadn't finished with her yet this long. Luke's ranch emerged like a ship through fog at dusk. The weathered cabin was partially hidden by a rock formation until you were close to it. Sarah barely considered her good move. Pain. The woman in his arms wandered between consciousness and darkness during their voyage, occasionally murmuring prayers or her dead husband's name. Even with his homemade bandages, Luke pushed his horse as hard as he could, mindful of the blood soaking through his coat. "Two Rivers," Luke's voice carried across the yard as he dismounted, somehow managing to keep Sarah steady. "Need your help here?" A tall, straight-backed figure appeared from the barn shadows, wearing a mix of native and settler clothing. Two Rivers' dark, intelligent eyes saw everything. "They're settlers." "Work," he said, not a question. "Blackwood's men," Luke said, carrying Sarah to the cabin. They left her for dead. Two Rivers opened the cabin door and lit the oil lanterns ahead of them. The interior was sparse but meticulously maintained. "My sister is medicine woman," Two Rivers said, gathering supplies from a chest near the fireplace. "I learned much from her. Without infection, the woman will live." They functioned efficiently for an hour like combat wound healers. Two Rivers washed and bandaged Sarah's injuries with native plants and settlers' medicine, while Luke held her motionless throughout the worst. She was stronger than she looked, scarcely whimpering when Two Rivers extracted a bullet from her shoulder. "Did you bring her here?" Two Rivers inquired, washing blood from his hands in a basin. "It will bring trouble." Luke peered into the hearth, expressionless. "Same reason you taught me your sister's medicine, old friend. Some things a man can't ride past." The Shoshone warrior nodded slowly. "The settlers will look." Luke held his pistol belt and said, "Let them come. This land's seen enough innocent blood." The bed's sigh caught their attention. Sarah opened her eyes, clearer but clouded with anguish. Her gaze alternated between the male's dread and necessity. "You're safe, Mrs. Mitchell," Luke said, keeping his distance to avoid scaring her. "This is Two Rivers. I've had too many bullet holes repaired by him." "Sarah," she whispered. "Please call me Sarah." She looked at Luke. "Why did you save me?" Luke poured her water to think about his answer. "Man doesn't need a reason to do right," he concluded. "But those who did this need a motive to do wrong. That makes them hazardous. They'll kill." "Too," Sarah said, quivering, accepting the drink. "Blackwood wants the land, claims something precious." Luke and Two Rivers glanced at each other. "Gold," Two Rivers muttered quietly. "My ancestors have known the streams in that valley for millennia. We preserved the secret because of the consequences." Sarah's voice grew angry. "Then they didn't simply want my land. They killed my ranch hands and torched everything. For gold?" Two Rivers answered. "Greed makes monsters of men, but it also exposes warriors." He nodded to Luke. "My friend, you selected your path." After Two Rivers left, the cabin was quiet. Sarah watched Luke prepare a simple supper. Finally, she spoke again, her voice tiny but determined. "I won't be a burden." Luke looked up from the stove and met her gaze. "A man has a right to defend his land, Mrs. Sarah. Woman, too." He stopped, considering his remarks. "Way I see it, you've got three choices. Run. Blackwood's kind. Keep hunting. I wouldn't recommend fighting alone." Luke caught a glimpse of a smile as Sarah closed her eyes, exhausted. "Together," she murmured. Ever since that term meant anything, Luke watched her fall asleep, instinctively caressing the Confederate captain's bars in his desk drawer. He'd given up causes after the war, but now he was joining another. He knew that some wars selected you whether to go after seeing Sarah's serene face in the firelight. James Blackwood stood in the burnt Mitchell homestead, his shiny boots out of place. Dawn revealed a blood trail from where they left the widow and hoofprints heading north. Second-in-command Tucker moved anxiously beside him. Tucker said it could have been animals, boss, but he was unsure. Lots of wolves here. Blackwood's hand ran across Tucker's face. Wolves don't clean blood. Wolves don't leave military bandages. He showed the bloody strip of fabric they recovered. A trained person found her. The sound of horses approaching caught their attention. 3 riders arrived, one with the Territorial Marshal's silver star. Blackwood wore a worried citizen's mask. Marshal Reynolds called out, "Thanks for coming so quickly." Lean and hard-eyed, the marshal assessed the wreckage. "I received your Indian Raiders message." Blackwood. "My office received word from the Shoshone agent yesterday, which is odd. 50 miles east, their bands are found. Perhaps you misread my message." Blackwood grinned weakly. "Never claimed Shoshone. Blackfeet, perhaps Crow. Lots of enemies here. Hostiles rarely leave. Army Winchester shell casings." The marshal dismounted and grabbed a brass cylinder. "Can you elaborate?" Blackwood's man ran from the barn before he could react. "Got something to see." New graves were found behind the barn. Mitchell Ranch hands buried quickly. The marshal knelt to examine the churned ground. He noticed these men were carefully buried, their hands crossed. Christian burial. Blackwood's voice warned Marshall subtly. "The territory expands. Change is progress. People may need convincing to change. Your office approved our settlement party. Your bosses know what to do here." Standing carefully, Reynolds brushed dirt from his knees. "Blackwood knows legal settlement. Legal is crucial. Getting on his horse. If I discover the widow Mitchell alive, I'll watch. Dead people can't sign land deeds, right?" Blackwood's phony smile evaporated once the marshal rode away. "Tucker, gather the men. A blood trail travels north. Only 2 ranches up there. Henderson and Hawkins, the loner." "Hawkins?" Tucker tenderly stroked his wounded face. "His name was mentioned locally. Soldier from the Confederacy. Keeps to himself, although gun skills are praised." Blackwood squinted. "So he has no territorial government buddies, no legal standing? Getting on his horse? Gather 20 men. We'll visit Mr. Hawkins. 20 men per rancher, 20 mails to message." Blackwood urged his horse. "The terrain is shifting. Heroes no longer fit." Luke watched Sarah take her first step after the attack from miles north, ignorant of the storm. Before reaching the cabin's porch, she leaned heavily on his arm but looked determined. "Take it easy," he said. 2 rivers. He said the stitches need a week. She smiled briefly. "Can't lie forever. I hear Ryder approaching." Luke reached for his revolver. But calm as 2 rivers loomed over the bend, the Shoshone's look drove everyone. Relief from mourning. Blackwood? 2 rivers unloaded easily. 20 men riding north, found the trail. Luke brought Sarah inside, thinking strategically. How long? 2 hours, maybe less. Luke was held by Sarah. "Run, please. No one should die for me." First Luke checked his rifle, then pistol. "No one's dying today, Sarah." He faced 2 rivers. "We planned a Wolfpack Canyon ambush last winter." Grimly, 2 rivers smirked. "I'll assemble hunters, yours and 6 firearms." 7, Sarah insisted. "So I can shoot. Thomas taught me." She had steel eyes, so Luke nodded. 7 then, teach Mr. Blackwood geography. The appearance of a killing ground. Deceptively peaceful dawn rose over Luke's ranch. Uneasy stillness had descended over the valley after Blackwood's men were pushed back at the canyon, a firefight that killed 2 residents and sent the remainder fleeing. Sarah watched Luke scan the perimeter from the porch, noting his meticulous movements like a man who'd spent years watching his back. "Your stitch holds?" he questioned, climbing stairs to join her. She said, accidentally caressing her shoulder. 2 rivers works well. The agony was faint, but some wounds were deeper. I see them sometimes when I close my eyes. My ranch hands had families. Luke rested near her, keeping their distance. "I learned about ghosts from war," he whispered. "Not fast enough. Can't fight, just make peace with them. Let them remind you of your cause. Is that why you live alone?" He clarified that he was alone, then seemed astonished. Their eyes met briefly before they parted. The cabin has changed inside over the week. Sarah touched in little ways. A tin cup of wildflowers, a quilt from her destroyed home stretched over a chair, and fresh-baked bread. Luke noticed how these adjustments made his basic abode feel more homey. Luke abruptly asked about Thomas. "If you're okay discussing him." Her hands remained on her lap. Gentle, decent man, believed in building, not destroying. A sorrowful smile crossed her lips. She loathed battling. But he also valued justice. Therefore, we filed our papers appropriately. Everything legal and correct. Lots of good. It did us. Luke agreed that law enforcement is only as good as the guys. But that Marshall, the man seemed strange. Marshall Reynolds. Sarah nods. He assisted us with our claim. One of the territory's few honest men. She paused. Luke, why are you assisting me? The truth this time. Luke did not speak for long. He meticulously cleaned his gun. I had no purpose after the war. Wandered west to forget. Maybe he checked the rifle's action. A sharp morning click. Maybe I was waiting for something memorable. With unseen words, their distance shrank. Sarah hesitated to cover him. He touched her palm with his trigger finger calluses. 2 Rivers, said Blackwood's gathering additional men softly. We could leave and go on. Luke clasped her warm, strong hand. You built a life here for 2 years. Defending that seems worthwhile. His voice grew harsh. Men like Blackwood keep going. Give them 1 win. They want 10 more. 1 rider loomed on the horizon. 2 fast-flowing rivers. Luke stood, helping Sarah stand. They lingered too long with their hands. What comes? Sarah said. I'm delighted you found me that day. 2 Rivers interrupted Luke's response. The Shoshone warrior looked serious. Blackwood presently has 50 men, not simply settlers. Hired Colorado firearms. He employs Wyoming marshals. Tomorrow dawn brings them. She squared her shoulders. Sunlight on her gold hair in the morning. We have 1 day to prepare. Luke nodded determinedly. 2 Rivers attract hunters. Show me every land detail you recall, Sarah. If Blackwood wanted war, he examined his doll. Gun belt, like breathing. Some of us can still fight one. A thick night blanketed the property. It brought silence that made recollections too loud to ignore. Luke and Sarah studied a rough map of her acreage he'd sketched from her descriptions near the fireplace. 2 Rivers left to assemble his hunters, leaving them alone for the first time since her arrival. There's something I haven't told you, Sarah said, tracing the map. About Thomas, the land, and Blackwood's obsession. Luke put his coffee down and focused on her. She looked determined as the firelight created flickering shadows on her face. Thomas was more than a farmer, she said. He was a pre-war geologist. Studying at Harvard, worked for Eastern mining firms. He wasn't only after farmland when we went west. He sought something special. Luke nodded. Gold. Not just gold, 2 Rivers suggested it. Sarah rose, retrieving her stuff. A leather-bound diary was pulled from her dress's concealed pocket. Thomas discovered large, silver veins in the hills. He mapped, sampled, and documented everything. But he understood what would happen if word spread. Luke carefully took the diary. Pages were packed with exact drawings, calculations, and observations. Blackwood is determined because of this. Such a man needs more than wealth. His goal is empire. Thomas protected it by filing our claim under agriculture solely and concealing mineral rights. Blackwood discovered Sarah's voice. Thomas informed me he saw guys inspecting our South Ridge the night before the attack. He never made it to the territorial office to file more papers by bike. Luke finished softly. Sarah shook her head, tears falling. They killed him on the trail, feigning Indian attack. Later, I learned that Blackwood's men had watched us for weeks, waiting for an opportunity. Fists clasped. I maintained the farm, pretended ignorance. They must have noticed I had Thomas's paperwork. They came for that. Luke instinctively embraced her. She stiffened, then melted against him, soaking his shirt in tears. They stood still for a while. Behind them, flames crackling, her sorrow, discovering freedom. After whispering into her hair, he froze, understanding what he'd spoken. She didn't retreat. Instead, she looked at him with tears and something else. The heart raced like it hadn't in years. Repeat, she whispered. He cupped Sarah's cheek, wiping tears with his thumb. She raised on her tiptoes and kissed him in desperate hope of a new beginning, closing the distance. Before parting, the kiss was delicate, then deepened with mutual need and understanding. Both. Luke touched her forehead, breathless. Since you could sit up, I've tried not to, he confessed. Only a little laugh left her. The sound warmed the room better than fire. You were being polite, I thought. I was. His smile grew serious. Still am. Tomorrow brings Blackwood's troops. We're facing. I need you to know your options. We can take 2 rivers from her, slip, out in Shoshone country, restart elsewhere. Sarah touched his chest over his heart. I've always let people decide. My dad picked Thomas. Land was chosen by Thomas. Even Blackwood sought to decide my fate. She held his eyes. Choosing now. Fighting is my choice. I pick you. Luke was moved by her conviction. He believed Appomattox killed him. He merely said, we fight. Instead of desperation, their second kiss was promising. A fightable future. Night grew outside. Their adversaries gathered further in the darkness. They discovered strength no army could match in that moment, wrapped in one another's arms. Luke and 2 Rivers surveyed the valley approaches to the ranch in the morning sun, indicating choke points and defensive positions. Sarah watched from the porch. She held Thomas's journal as Shoshone warriors arrived. In tiny groups, each expert with bow and rifle owed 2 Rivers honor. She had 12 warriors on the porch, 2 Rivers reported. Kind, sturdy men, nodded to Luke, who was showing. Young warrior, excellent rifle placements. Since you arrived, he changed. He was frozen like a winter stream before. He flows again. Sarah's cheeks warmed. He saved me in many ways. The sound of horses interrupted their talk. Luke appeared with rifle in hand. His mood lightened as he saw Marshal Reynolds leading a small party up the trail. Hawkins, that's a big crowd. Reynolds ordered dismounting. He raised eyebrows at the armed Shoshone warriors. Why are you assembling an army? Can ask Blackwood the same. Luke replied evenly. Was told he's riding with 50 hired guns. Reynolds spewed dust. 63 latest count, including 3 of my deputies who abruptly took leave. He regarded Mrs. Mitchell, Sarah. Glad you're alive. Marshal. Sarah presented Thomas's journal. My husband's investigation proves Blackwood's goal, and Thomas's death wasn't an Indian raid. Reynolds browsed the journal, his face deepening. This is why they burnt the territorial office 2 nights ago, destroying the claim papers. He returned the journal. Officially, I can't help. Even though they have too many powerful friends, he smiled grimly. I have a few days off. Shame on me for visiting old friends. Luke nodded slowly. Are other old pals social? Few Southern ranchers. Valley residents have struggled with Blackwood's progress. They'll arrive at sunset. Reynolds chose 2 Rivers. Here, your folks agree. Could be ugly. 2 Rivers proudly straightened. Clash is chosen, not given. We know this land's heart. Success for Blackwood will bring more. Better fight now with trusted fighters. Over the valley, a rifle shot rang. Bullets hit the cabin wall, and everyone ducked. Luke saw 5 Blackwood scouts on the ridge assessing their defenses via his scope. Enter, he yelled. Sarah was headed toward the gun rack, not the cabin. She checked a Winchester with skilled hands. Standing by a window, she added, Thomas taught me more than geology. The firefight was brief yet intense. 2 Blackwood soldiers fell, while the others escaped under fire. 2 Rivers examined the dead when stillness returned. Scouts. He reported Colorado males. Hired firearms, you said. This is carried. He showed a rough ranch map. Luke grimly examined it. Come through the north draw. Approach only broad enough for their numbers. They are that. And meant to think, Reynolds said. Mrs. Mitchell, did your husband map these hills' old mining tunnels in his journal? Sarah's eyes widened. There's an entire network. Early settlers dug for silver in the 1850s. Failed. But tunnels remain. Many tie to Shoshone hunting caves. Add 2 Rivers. Many of my people know them. Luke saw his fierce hope in Sarah's eyes. Outnumbered in the open, she concluded that we chose the battlefield in those caverns. Thomas always said knowledge was power. Prove him right. Luke observed Sarah calmly conducting strategy meetings and drawing tunnel openings on maps at the cabin table. A warrior replaced the frightened widow he'd found bleeding in the mud. Reynolds said daybreak would bring them. Blackwood is too proud to wait after today's loss. Sarah touched Luke's under. Table squeezed once. Let's prepare to welcome him. Luke's back fence's empty bottles caught the afternoon sun. Carrying Thomas's old Colt, Sarah stood 20 paces away. Luke positioned himself behind her and gently adjusted her stance, sending warmth. His voice was low near her ear, telling her to breathe first despite the fall chill. Always sight second, squeeze third. Sarah breathed softly, feeling Thomas's past lessons melding with Luke's current direction. The pistol and bottle broke, and another, and another. You did it previously. Luke watched, impressed. Thomas believed ladies should know how to defend themselves. Sarah lowered the revolver and faced him. He never taught me what you must show me, about conflict, about murder. Luke's face clouded. Sarah? No. She stopped him. I've seen death, due to yesterday's skirmish. Know how to do it right. Live with it afterward. Before Luke replied. Hoofbeats signaled two rivers' return. Shoshone warriors' faces told stories. Before speaking, Collins manages the bank. Two rivers dismounted easily. He's messaging Blackwood. My people saw him with a courier this morning. Damn, Luke murmured. Collins granted Thomas's loan. He'd know about mineral surveys. Blackwood knew that. Sarah's voice shook. With fury. Collins undoubtedly informed him when Thomas filed the lawsuit. This was months in the works. Luke softly stroked her arm. The situation changes. Collins is aware of the tunnels. He supported the earliest mining operation in 1950. He's seeing Blackwood tonight. Two Rivers added. A silver dollar. My hunters overheard the arrangement. Sarah examined the Colt cylinder with practice. We entered town. Tonight, too risky. Luke objected. Town's full of Blackwood's men. Why they won't anticipate it? Sarah's eyes had steel. Collins has Thomas's surveys. Original acts likely need those papers. She's right. Two Rivers nods. Blackwood's offenses would be proven to territorial governor. Not even his government friends could overlook that. Luke analyzed Sarah's face. See the determination. She didn't request permission. She stated facts. Sarah sprang from her tribulations like a blade from fire, tempered, sharp. Our method is brilliant. Finally, he said. Two Rivers attract top hunters. We'll need rooftop protection. He faced Sarah. You must engage Collins. You won't worry him. Thinks you're dead. He'll talk. Sarah's smile was cold. Collins like men brag, especially deceased ladies. The plan worked. Sunset turned the valley blood scarlet. Marshal Reynolds' announcement accelerated their goal. Blackwood's men gather early. His report. The ranch will be reached before sunrise. No way. Collins. Probably told them about the tunnels. Gentle curse from Luke. Sarah, we can. No. She gracefully holstered the Colt. We need those papers more than ever. Two Rivers hunters can deadfall tunnel entrances while we're away. Still lacking Collins's betrayal proof. Blackwood wins if we expel him. Ladies got sand. Reynolds admired. Hawkins, watch out. If unchecked, she'll rule the entire territory. Luke laughed with pride and worry. Marshall does. Already does. Final preparations were done under darkness. Nighttime Two Rivers hunters vanished. Positioning around town. Sarah wore Shoshone clothing. Her clothes were practical for moving and fighting. Luke said quietly before riding, Collins not a soldier. If pressured, he'll yield. Don't react abruptly to his provocation. Sarah checked her hidden derringer, her boot knife. I won't kill Luke. However, he'll discover worse things than death. She saw his distress. When they torched my house, I learned that. Luke engulfed her in a hard kiss. Return to me, he whispered to her. She promised always. She then stood tall in the moonlight. Make Collins remember why hell hath no fury like a betrayed woman. The Silver Dollar Saloon lurked in the dark like a predator. Sarah straightened her scarf, pulse racing as she entered the back door. Smoke and shouting filled the main room. Most Blackwood's men drinking into the night. Collins sat alone in the corner, nervously tapping a leather satchel. While hiding behind the bar, Sarah heard the saloon doors open. James Blackwood's voice sliced through the noise. Your report is late, Collins. Sarah glanced. Blackwood donned Eastern clothes, but his eyes were still chilly from the attack. While sitting across from Collins, lamplight struck his face, making Sarah gasp. She'd seen his jaw scar in a photo Thomas hid in his desk. This photo shows the men who drove his family away, their wartime Virginia mine. Collins opened his knapsack and said everything was ready, all original deeds and mineral surveys. Finding the widow's body in the ranch ruins will establish abandonment. Law, territory, spare me the legalities. Blackwood stopped him. Mitchell's full documentation, where is it? His private journals? They were absent from the house. Blackwood swiftly grabbed Collins's collar. These notebooks describe every hillside silver vein. Mitchell's granddad plotted the initial strikes. A fortune has been in that family for 3 generations. Sarah's mind raced. Thomas never mentioned his grandfather or Virginia, but she remembered his reluctance to talk about the past. He worked their Wyoming claim like he was escaping from something. Then a blood feud. She jumped at Luke's whisper. He appeared ghostly next her. "You're Thomas? Is Thomas Mitchell Thorne his real name?" Sarah nodded slowly. "He altered it post-war." "How did—" "Because I was there." Luke's voice was painful. Virginia 63. Confederate patrols under Blackwood captured the Thorne family mine, claimed it for war. Thomas's father defended it and died. "And you?" As patrol captain, Luke looked at her guiltily. "I defied commands. Blackwood arrested me for disobedience and took over. I escaped custody too late." Sarah grabbed his in the dark. "So you deserted the war. Couldn't help men like him succeed." His grip increased on her. "Sarah, I'm sorry. If I'd been stronger—" She squeezed his hand. "You're making it now." Loud voices interrupted them. Blackwood towered over Collins. "Another opportunity," Blackwood hissed. "Where are journals?" Collins mumbled. "The widow needs them. She's dead. So where's the body?" Blackwood slammed his fist. "Collins, my men found traces. She was taken. Someone has hampered my plans for months. The raids. That failed. Missing supplies. Indian strikes that were overly coordinated." Eyes narrowed. An expert in military strategy. Luke tensed beside Sarah. Blackwood's reply confirmed their suspicions. "Only one Confederate officer, the one who tried to stop me, is among these hills." Coldly, Blackwood smiled. "The widow is his. Journals, too." The saloon went wild. Armed men ran for the doors. Sarah rose. Luke halted her. "Wait." He inhaled. "Collins still has proof." They watched Collins tremble while gathering his documents. Blackwood turned around before leaving. Collins must have no loose ends. Gunshots were deafening in the tight environment. Collins' crushed knapsack spilled documents on the floor. Sarah bit back scream. Luke's steely arm concealed her like Blackwood's. Boots froze inches away. "Burn it," Blackwood orders. "All of it. No evidence of the Mitchell claim will exist by daylight." Luke freed her as the saloon emptied. With shaky hands, Sarah stumbled to Collins' body and collected the papers. "I wanted him to pay," she muttered. "Not this way. Blackwood's stakes are higher than expected." Luke helped her gather documentation. "This goes beyond gold and silver. Erasing history. Thomas died fighting to recover his family's legacy." Sarah stood, holding treasured papers. Her voice grew colder. "We'll make sure he didn't die for nothing. Blackwood wants history erased. He shouldn't live to see the future." They hardly returned to the ranch before Blackwood's men attacked. Gunfire shattered windows and splintered timber in the pre-dawn gloom. Luke pushed Sarah under an overturned table as lead ravaged the cabin wall. "Their firing goes beyond scaring us." Two Rivers called from his window seat. "We're herded away from the tunnel opening." A loud explosion shook the ground. Through the chaos, Sarah heard Blackwood's voice. "Hawkins lost a tunnel. How many more can you lose?" Luke looked at Two Rivers with gloom. They installed deadfalls at tunnel entrances. They didn't expect dynamite. The earth collapsed when another explosion lighted up the darkness. Two Shoshone rivers roared. Blackwood's men fled after hidden warriors fired from the ranch's rocks. The break was brief. Far more horsemen emerged from the darkness than expected. "We must have been in town when they deployed reinforcements." Luke checked his ammunition and mumbled, "Sarah, visit the root cellar. Tunnels exist." "No." She shot through a wall gap, eliciting a groan from the darkness. "We run. Lost everything. The papers. The proof. All of it." Kerosene ignited as a bottle crashed through the window, spreading flames across the floor. He briefly exposed himself as Two Rivers jumped to blanket it. Hearing the gun crack was deafening. Two Rivers spun, painting his chest red. "No!" Luke supplied cover fire as Sarah ran to him. "Shoshone warriors." His eyes were ferocious despite his ragged breathing. He exclaimed, "The spirits are not ready for me. We can't remain." Too many explosions shook the valley, confirming his words. Survivalist Shoshone warriors yelled alarm. Blackwood's men found concealed high-ground pathways. "Luke!" Marshal Reynolds' words echoed over turmoil. Behind the barn, he and 3 ranchers were trapped. "Work is underway behind us." Sarah helped Two Rivers sit and bandaged his wound. Remembering Thomas's notebooks, maps, and the hill's unexplored depths flashed through her head. "Thomas's grandfather's old shaft," she said, unexpectedly. "First dig before silver. No mining maps show it. They abandoned it because it was too deep and unstable." Luke fired another shot and faced her. "Where?" "Under the North Ridge. A dead pine wood hides the entrance. It links to the main tunnel network, but Blackwood won't know." Holding his arm, "It's hazardous. Everything might crumble. We'll move behind their lines." A second explosion shook the cabin. Overhead wood cracked as the roof collapsed. Now no choice, Luke thought. He signaled Reynolds by whistling at the window. Nodding, the marshal ordered his men to cover fire. Two Rivers? Sarah supported the injured man. "I can move," he said her, his face drawn in misery. "My hunters will occupy them, or make every move costly." They fled the blazing home as Reynolds and his men alerted Blackwood. Night was anarchy. Gunfire, explosions, anger, and suffering. Sarah guided them through darkness, using only Thomas's notes. Praying, her memories helped. Dead trees stretched out like skeletal fingers against the skies ahead. Behind them, the property was on fire, lighting up the valley in flames. Sarah heard Blackwood's frenzied orders and the thunder of hooves as his soldiers realized their target had gone. She found the door half-collapsed and practically undetectable in the gloom. "Luke, the charges they're deploying could collapse the major tunnels, bringing down this mountain part." Grimly, he ended. Even with his wound, Two Rivers straightened. "We must move quickly like the wind before a storm." They entered the shaft's darkness as another explosion rattled the earth. Sarah felt Luke's hand on her as they descended the mountain. The world blazed behind them. In the tunnel, she grabbed Luke's hand for strength as darkness and uncertainty loomed ahead. Though they lost the property, they survived. By surviving, they denied Blackwood victory. That'll do for now. In a secret valley, high rocks stopped the cold Wyoming wind and protected the Shoshone Medicine Lodge. Morning Dove, Two Rivers' sister, used her skills and old cures to treat his wounds all night. Western medicine may have considered impossible. Sarah watched Luke and the surviving warriors talk gravely in the firelight from the lodge door. They suffered greatly from the ranch attack. 3 Shoshone dead, several wounded, and their strongest defense lost. Luke's demeanor had changed. Command rested like a familiar cloak on his shoulders. He pushed it aside but never forgot. Now he recalls. Two Rivers whispered on his tongue. He was a leader before. "Are you worried?" Sarah asks. "Soldier returning?" "No." Two Rivers grinned through suffering. "War chiefs who fight for love are stronger than those who hate. You gave him this." Sarah's cheeks warmed. The last weeks had changed her as much as Luke. The sad widow fought, but her heart healed and loved again. Luke concluded his advice and approached, his demeanor softening as always when he saw her. "Warriors say Blackwood's men are searching tunnels. They don't know about this valley, but we must leave. My brother must relax." Morning Dove interjected, speaking forceful, accented English. "The spirit journey continues. The spirit must travel faster." Two Rivers frowned as he sat up. Blackwood is impatient. Luke was touched by Sarah. "Walk with me?" They walked to the camp's edge where a little creek ran over rocks. The full moon illuminated the valley in silver. They nearly stopped worrying about their peril. Finally, Sarah replied, "I've studied Thomas's journals, the first shaft we used to escape. Not simply to the main tunnels. It explores older mechanisms. What his grandfather found down there terrified him enough to shut the lower floors." Luke's warm, calloused hand touched her. "Kinda something?" "Large, uncharted caves, more significantly, a descent. Position of Blackwood. If we could get enough soldiers through," she grabbed his hand. "It's hazardous. Maps show unstable ground. Old, potentially collapsed support beams." Luke considered it a great trap, if we could attract. Blackwood's forces aligned. Sarah turned to face him, moonlight highlighting her gold hair. "I understand if you'd rather not risk it. We could leave and go on." Luke put his hand on her cheek. He touched gently despite gun calluses. "Running never. Stayed with me when I left. Some things are worth fighting for." He looked at her. "Some people are worth dying for. Please don't die for me," she whispered. "Please." live for me, pulling her close. The promises words couldn't keep were in his lips. Sarah melted into him, feeling his strong arms and steady heartbeat. They parted breathlessly as the moon changed. Luke quickly said, "Marry me. Present, not future." Sarah's heart sank tonight. "Luke, I realize the timing's off. I know we're in danger, that either of us could die tomorrow." His voice was gruff and emotional. "It must be now for that reason. I won't face anything without you as my wife." Two Rivers spoke from behind. "The Shoshone way is easy. Two hearts speaking to spirits. More is unnecessary." They turned to find Two Rivers in the camp observing them. Sarah received an intricate blanket from Mourning Dove. She replied softly, "To warm two hearts as one for the bride." Luke had the same assurance in his gaze as Sarah did in her soul. She replied simply. They made their vows under the moon with their odd family of warriors and ranchers. Two Rivers blessed them in his people's way, and Mourning Dove wrapped them in the marriage blanket. The war begins tomorrow. Voices of Two Rivers. Tonight brings love. This balance pleases the spirits. Prepared later in a lodge's darkness, Sarah traced Luke's chest scars for them. "No regrets. Only that I didn't discover you sooner," he whispered into her hair. Their adversaries hunted in the darkness as the wind whistled through the cliffs. In this moment, they found their castle in one other's arms, not stone or wood. As Luke and Sarah prepared for their deep tunnel excursion, dawn turned the cliffs blood red. Two Rivers said the spirits required him to come despite his wounds. Marshal Reynolds remained. Men were already watching tunnel entrances for Blackwood's patrols. Luke spotted Henderson's lateness, checking his ammunition 3 times. The rancher offered to send crucial supplies from his hidden store for their clandestine operation. "Someone's coming," Two Rivers called gently from his lookout, but not Henderson. A dozen riders emerged from the morning mist on horses they heard. James Blackwood led them, and Henderson looked away from his erstwhile pals. Blackwood said, "You've established a cozy camp. Henderson kindly guided us. He seems more concerned with his ranch than your cause." Luke raised his rifle instantly, but Sarah's hand stopped him. Their location was surrounded. More Blackwood soldiers arrived on the slopes above. "Camp rifle training." "You knew," Two Rivers whispered to Henderson. "When I told you about the spirit's warning, you knew you'd betray us." Henderson hid his humiliation. "He has my family. Two Rivers, my girl. What would you've done? Enough talking." Blackwood dismounted easily. "Mrs. Mitchell or Mrs. Hawkins. Congrats on your wedding, a gift from me." He pointed his revolver toward Luke's heart. "Your new husband's life. Just give me the notebooks and show me the deep tunnels your first husband diligently mapped." "Don't, Sarah." Luke moved forward. All firearms cocked. In their vicinity, Blackwood proceeded as if Luke hadn't responded. "You have 1 minute. After that, I shot. Start with your husband, then the Indian, then everyone in this camp. Blood on your widow." Mind of Sarah raced. Crime evidence and Blackwood's journals were stashed in the medicine lodge. Life mysteries, family legacy, and justice for Thomas are balanced against the lives before her. She responded gently, "You'll save them if I go with you." Sarah, no. Never before had Luke's voice sounded desperate. "On my gentlemanly honor." Coldly, Blackwood smiled. "Even journals can be kept. Newspapers matter nothing once I have silver veins." Two Rivers advanced despite his wounds. "The ghosts say." A rifle shot rang out. Two Rivers stumbled. New blood on his bandages. "Time's up," Blackwood said. "Choose." Sarah looked to Luke to express what she couldn't say. The wedding nights murmured promises. Justice is their goal, her plan. She put everything into that appearance. "I'll demonstrate," she told Blackwood. "Please don't hurt others." Blackwood's men grabbed her arms with harsh hands. Luke's emotional voice roared as they hauled her toward the horses. "We'll find you." "I know," she whispered, too softly for anybody else to hear, increasing the volume so Blackwood could hear. A deep tunnel enters the north cliff. Luke's eyes showed comprehension as Blackwood's men bound her hands behind the dead pine forest. The north tunnel, an unsteady one, the ideal trap. I wish Luke understood her meaning. "Mount up," Blackwood said. "Destiny awaits Mrs. Hawkins and me." Sarah saw the camp one last time as they rode away. Luke, he stood still, his face a mask of anger and despair. He saw something else as Two Rivers weighed on his gun, understanding. They knew. They needed to know, because if they didn't, her plans would be wasted. The medicine hut was quiet save for Two Rivers' heavy breathing. Luke paced like a trapped wolf, contemplating Sarah's remarks. The North Tunnel, an unsteady one. Her idea had to go further, she knew. Suddenly, Two Rivers spoke. In her perspective, the North Tunnel warriors were crafty. Luke stopped pacing. The journals were only shown to me. No one told Henderson they existed. He moved. Take Thomas's worn books from Morning Dove's sleeping pallet's concealed bundle. A yellow envelope dropped out when he opened the latest book. Paper was ancient. Though the ink faded, the calligraphy appeared disturbingly familiar. Luke's hands shook reading the letter heading. Captain James Thorne, 1863, to my son Thomas, to open after my death. It's what? As Luke paled, Two Rivers asked. It's impossible, Luke muttered. He read aloud, My dearest son, Blackwood's treachery has killed me. But you must know more. Mental silver was never real treasure. We uncovered something else in the deepest tunnel, where historic workings meet natural caverns, something that turned Blackwood against his country and commander. Luke's voice decreased as he read the letter. Dear God, Blackwood arrested me for refusing his directives. The silver was a ruse. What was found? Two Rivers sat awkwardly. Bars have more gold than Comstock. Spanish gold, centuries old. Conquistadors concealed a treasure in caves. Luke's mind raced. Thomas's grandfather found it early in mining. Knowing its discovery would affect the territory, kept it hidden. Spiritual whispers mention such treasures. Two Rivers nod. Greed and blood curse Spanish gold. Luke kept reading. I give you this secret. Gold stays where we found it, son. I sealed lower tunnels. Better buried than discovered and bloodied. The only map of its position is in my mining surveys. Only silver deposits emerge in surveys. Luke realized Sarah knew. That's why she insisted on the North Tunnel. Not simply unstable. This is the only way to get Spanish gold. He held his gun to check the load, and she led Blackwood to it. Two Rivers knew to trap him. In the darkness, his numbers signify nothing. A noise outside caught their attention. Marshal Reynolds stormed the lodge. Luke, Henderson died. He sent us a message before being found with his neck slit in the creek. He presented bloody paper. Blackwood doesn't work alone. California supports him. Mining firms and complete private army at the border. After he secures the mines, they'll capture the valley. Luke fist-crushed the letter. Our time is up. Sarah faces more than Blackwood. She faces invasion. He chose Two Rivers. Your warriors ready to move in an hour? We're ready. Wounded Man smiled grimly. The spirits predicted battle this morning. Luke's voice echoed his command days. Get men. We'll need every rifle. Luke read Thomas's last diary post as the lodge erupted. One remark on a crude drawing of the lower tunnel system made terrible sense. The honorable will find glory in the depths, while the greedy will find darkness. Hold. To Sarah, he whispered. Your husband's coming. Both. An iron scar covered the valley floor where Blackwood had established his base, an abandoned mining camp. Sarah observed men move in military-like patterns from her guarded tent, not merely employed. Except for name, they were soldiers. It's impressive. Blackwood came to her shoulder. Tonight, 50 additional men arrival. California Mining Coalition values thoroughness. All for silver? Sarah spoke neutrally. Blackwood laughed without humor. Come, Mrs. Hawkins. We know Thomas's grandfather left more than silver in those hills. The Spanish gold has only begun. If we control the territory's mining rights, we'll own everything from here to Montana. Sarah faced him, showing him only what she wanted. A woman fighting for life. How do I fit into your larger vision? Smart. He coldly smiled at her. Tunnels are mazes. Your husband's surveys are needed to find the main cache. Then he shrugged. In unstable mines, accidents occur. Luke explained their plan to a war council in the Hidden Valley. His wound began to heal as Two Rivers rested against a lodge pole. Marshal Reynolds' remaining deputies checked weapons while Shoshone warriors painted their combat faces. North Tunnel splits 3 ways. Luke followed Thomas's map. Main shaft to Spanish Gold Chamber. Eastern Fork has natural caverns. If needed, our escape. Western Fork is essential. He indicated an extensively scribbled section. Rotted support beams. One good explosion would level half the mountain. We can move how many guys through the caves? Reynolds asks. Two Rivers are blocked by the cliff. They may place 20 guys above the main chamber, another 30 through the eastern caverns. Luke pointed to valley approach. Therefore, marshal deputies must handle California's threat. My soldiers patrol the region roadways thinly, Reynolds cautioned. Still, we've sent riders to every ranch within 50 miles. Anyone who suffered under Blackwood will attend. Softly, Two Rivers talked. Ranchers won't be alone. My people recall Blackwood's treaty violations. When signal flames blaze, 3 tribes' soldiers ride. Signal fires? Luke asks, already lighted. Two Rivers grinned. Not only spirits can prepare for war. Sarah waited till nightfall at the mining camp to act. Careless guard outside her tent, more concerned with his booze than his responsibilities. Luke had taught her ways to pass him effortlessly throughout their limited time together. The camp's command tent was dark and vacant. She found what she needed inside. Letters from Blackwood. He has California backers. Letters, contracts, territorial government bribes. Most crucially, a precise military occupation plan for the entire territory, all disguised as mining activities. She photographed Thomas's documents. Hold camera. Sarah heard activity outside. She swiftly replaced everything, taking cover behind a map table as Blackwood and his lieutenants entered. Latest California report, one man said. The main force crosses territory at daybreak. 200 guys, fully armed, perfect timing. Sarah crouched behind Blackwood's map-covered table. Spanish gold will be available then? Secured. With that money, no one will question our power. The woman? Another voice inquired. Suspects everything. She's scared and alone. Blackwood chuckled. She realizes her beloved Luke is in danger. Too late. Her blood chilled. Somehow they sensed Luke's cave approach. But how? He answered when the next man entered the tent. Henderson's son, Timothy, Luke's scout. Betrayal seemed familial. Sarah stopped herself, remembering every planning detail. When she returned to her tent, her guard was inebriated and unaware she'd left. Luke gave her the wedding ring days before, which she touched in the dark. Bloodshed was coming tomorrow. But today she was her father-in-law's daughter, first husband's widow, new husband's wife. 3 generations of strong hearts, loving the land and seeking justice. Come, whispered to the night, show them its value. Silence filled the mining camp before daybreak. As Blackwood's men prepared for their subterranean trip, Sarah watched torches move in the dark. She alerted one of Two River scouts, a kid selling trinkets near the camp. Timothy Henderson's duplicity no longer surprised Luke. She prepared in her tent. Thomas's tunnel maps depicting the real routes. Her boot hides the little derringer. The knowledge matters most. She envisioned the deepest chambers. Spanish gold was real, but Thomas's granddad left something more in those depths, something only geologists understand. Mrs. Hawkins, go. Blackwood's voice implied civility. This is your last chance to simplify. Sarah left the darkness before sunrise, her expression calm. The tunnels are dangerous, Mr. Blackwood. One false turn could trap us. That's why you're leading. The smile didn't reach his eyes. Along with insurance, he pointed to Timothy Henderson, looking away from her. Young Timothy knows the caves almost as well as you. Any try to deceive. Yes, I understand, said Sarah quietly. And she did. Timothy was more than a traitor. He was captive to his father's debt. The horror in his young eyes told her everything. Luke commanded his men through the eastern caves miles away. As shadows, Two Rivers warriors moved, silent moccasins on stone. Marshal Reynolds' men followed, ranchers next. Who answered? Men who lost land or family to Blackwood's ambitions. Scout signal. Two Rivers whispered. Sarah informed us. Henderson betrayed our strategy. Luke grimly nodded. We altered our plan. Boy is probably a captive. His father's death plagues him. He faced the men. Novel method. We split. Take your soldiers through the lower tunnel, Marshal. Two Rivers. No place for your warriors above. Let me guide the ranchers across the middle. The California force, Reynolds asks. My riders report. Two Rivers grinned. 3 tribes gather in the upper valley, with Blackwood's reinforcements through the pass. Warriors await. Luke examined his pocket watch under the illumination. 1 hour until daybreak. Position yourself. Hold your fire until my signal. He regarded each man individually. Today, we're battling for more than territory and riches. We're fighting for every family wanting to settle here, for every hill tribe, instead of Blackwood-ruled futures. For Sarah. Softly, Two Rivers added, for Sarah. Luke concurred. His emotional speech was harsh. In mining camp, final preps were beginning. For the subterranean trip, Blackwood chose 30 men, leaving the rest to guard approaches. Sarah carefully noted their positions as she was escorted to the north tunnel entrance. Last chance, Blackwood. Sarah faced him at the tunnel entrance. You've seen maps. You know the hazards. Is Spanish gold worth killing for? Blackwood was momentarily doubtful. It hardened into familiar malice. Your Virginia father-in-law asked me the same, just before I killed him. He carefully inspected his weapon. Silver, land, Mrs. Hawkins, they're more than money, they're might, power to shape a nation. Any price is worth that. Timothy of Henderson came to mind. Blackwood had killed many in his desire of empire, valued at every price. Gun in hand, he pointed to dark passageway. After you. Sarah looked at the lightning one last time. Luke was positioning himself. Two Rivers warriors prepared their ambush. Blackwood's future idea was opposed by settlers and tribes from across territories. What did Thomas's granddad write in his last letter? She spoke as she led them into the darkness. About guys seeking dominance in these hills. Inform me. Sarcasm oozed from Blackwood. Sarah lighted the lead lamp, barely illuminating the blackness ahead. She said the righteous will triumph in the depths. The greedy will find darkness. Behind her, 30 armed men laughed at her false threat. Sarah understood what they didn't, concerning unstable geology, about Thomas's well-hidden bombs, the trap waiting 60 years for this moment. Dawn approached, creating a generational reckoning. They were swallowed alive by the tube. They faced darkness despite lanterns. Sarah counted her way into the mountain's heart with Blackwood soldiers, remembering Thomas's meticulous markings, trampled stone behind her boots, voices echoing weirdly. 30 men, all following her into the depths where Thomas's grandfather left more than Spanish money. Upcoming intersection, Tim Henderson shouted, his boyish voice strained. The main rooms. Through the West Fork. The boy's right. Sarah agreed. She spoke fearfully. The support beams remain. They're unstable. Stone walls reflected Blackwood's laughter. Good try, Mrs. Hawkins. We brought our mining engineer, Mr. Chen. Little Chinese man stepped forward. Behind wire-rimmed glasses, his eyes were sharp. Structured support is sufficient. Beams were introduced recently. Sarah's heart jumped. Professional expertise wasn't expected. However, she noticed Chen's gaze shift to the eastern entrance. And she knew, not everyone. Blackwood employed a devoted follower, the eastward path, she said, as if vanquished. It's longer, but safer. Western Fork. Blackwood gave orders. Now, after 50 yards, the first shot rang out, noise deafening in the little space. One of Blackwood's men fell. He was shot from a side tunnel. They didn't notice. Luke's ranchers fired more from hiding. Ambush. Sarah was Blackwood's shield. Push onward. Get to the main room. Chaos broke out in the tunnel. Gun smoke permeated the cramped room, making the lantern light dance wildly across the walls. Sarah heard Luke order. Muzzle flashes in several directions. Two Rivers warriors worked nicely, putting shooters in smaller tunnel honeycombs. Support beams. Chen shouted abruptly. Check the rocks. Stone walls had been eroded by bullets, confirming Sarah's suspicions. Dynamite sticks by the dozen, painting over a well-mortared rock. Thomas's grandfather's insurance policy revealed. You tricked us. Blackwood growled, holding his gun to Sarah's skull. Leadership was yours, she replied. Just like Virginia, your greed obscures everything. Closer shots rang out. Luke's voice rang through smoke. Sarah, here, called back. She pushed her elbow into Blackwood's solar plexus. As he doubled over, she twisted free, diving for shelter as bullets traversed the tunnel. Timothy Henderson tackled a Blackwood enforcer who had targeted Sarah. Run, he screamed her. The main room, Luke's, waiting. Sarah rushed through the commotion, hearing Blackwood's roaring orders. A massive natural cavern softly lighted by lamps emerged from the tunnel. Spanish gold bars shone dimly in straight rows here. Sarah's eyes were pulled to the figure among them in the dim light. Luke, he wrapped his arms around her as bullets blazed from the rocks surrounding them as they collided in the chamber. You had to complicate it, right? The man whispered into her hair. A family trait, she smiled. The dynamite. River's warriors charge things. Just must. So touching. Blackwood's voice rang through the cavern. He exited the tunnel. Gunpoint arrest of Timothy Henderson. More of his soldiers surrounded the chamber behind him. Finally reunited, the happy pair. Sarah was shoved behind Luke as his rifle targeted Blackwood. No more. California entered a tribal ambush. Marshal Reynolds encircles your camp. Free the boy. Over, Blackwood chuckled. Captain Hawkins, look about. Check out Virginia's honor penalty. You could have had all this if you followed directions. Your treatment of the Thorns was dishonorable. Luke spoke steelily. Just because your current actions lack dignity, honor doesn't establish civilizations. Blackwood's gun hit Timothy's head harder. Both of you must down your weapons or the boy dies like his father. Luke was touched by Sarah. She muttered, trust me. They lowered their rifles slowly. Sarah noticed shadowy forms around the chamber, 2 Rivers warriors awaiting action. She counted seconds in her thoughts, recalling Thomas's precise timing. Blackwood ordered a search. His men advanced. Rough hands find Sarah's derringer, Luke's backup gun. Sarah carefully informed Blackwood that the gold was yours. You won. Just release us. Okay, go. Coldly, Blackwood smiled. Together with young Timothy into the deepest shaft. Dead families don't share stories. Sarah looked at him. You're right. Dead men don't talk, like Thomas's grandfather. Did you ever wonder why he blocked these tunnels? He left all this gold alone. Why? Her tone made Blackwood pause. Shen's eyes widened with comprehension behind him. Sir, geological surveys, water table. The first blast stopped him, and another, and another. As Thomas anticipated, the meticulously buried charges detonated in order. The chamber trembled as 60 years of preparing came true. The gold was never the treasure, Sarah shouted above the pandemonium. Silver was the real fortune in upper mines. This was a trap waiting for a greedy person to spring it. Water breached weak walls, an underworld, river, regaining its path after decades of deviation. 2 Rivers warriors revealed themselves, grabbed Timothy, and fired at Blackwood's startled troops. The compartment is flood-rigged. Luke took Sarah's. Move, screaming Blackwood. Water thunder was interrupted by wrath. His rifle aimed for Sarah's heart. Luke dove for their guns as Sarah pushed Timothy to the evacuation tunnel. They barked out 3 shots almost simultaneously. Luke's gunshot bled Blackwood, who staggered. His shot was wide, because Timothy Henderson threw himself toward the bullet. No, Sarah caught the falling boy. Luke pulled them to safety as the chamber filled with water and screaming men. Expel them. He covered their departure with his rifle as 2 Rivers appeared through the turmoil. All charges are lighted and half-carried. Timothy hurled the tunnels as the mountain trembled. The ocean roared loudly behind them. Sarah heard Blackwood's last defiance yell cut off as the tide seized him. Early morning light illuminated the tunnel mouth ahead. They emerged into morning air as the final explosives exploded, the mountains collapsing with a ground-shaking finality that sealed the Spanish gold forever. Marshal Reynolds, his men, 2 River warriors, and half the territory's population waited on a distant ridge. While Blackwood's men surrendered, hundreds of native warriors sat on their horses. Timothy! Sarah kneeled alongside the pale, conscious boy. Why? Had to fix it, he whispered. What Pa and I did had to fix it. You did, son. Luke grabbed his shoulder. You did. 2 Rivers' sister was already treating Timothy's wound. He will live, she said. Spirits are still working on this. As the sun rose over the valley, Luke held Sarah. Behind them, the mountains swallowed Blackwood and his golden fantasy forever. Ahead, the territory was free to write its future. What now? She asked quietly. Luke embraced her. Now we build. Something genuine, grown from the ground. Together, he promised, always together. Warriors and settlers began repairing their injured earth around them. Sarah thought she saw Thomas smile, knowing his grandfather's long vigil was done and the treasure he'd protected had served its purpose. Greed came from the land and the people who would be free to live there, not gold. 1 year later, Sarah watched the Wyoming sunset from the reconstructed ranch house porch. The country recovered rapidly after Blackwood's defeat. Nature covered previous scars to recover hers. Luke wrapped his strong arms around her waist and lovingly stroked her swollen belly as she grew. Spring flowers would bring their child into a world radically different from the one they'd struggled to change. She leant against him and stated Timothy's letter arrived. The territorial governor authorized his Harvard geology application. Thomas would have approved. Luke agreed that he's a decent kid who honored both his fathers, the one he lost and the one he failed. 2 well-worn Shoshone rivers rode up the route below the home. Leader refused to send his people to the reserve, and Marshall Reynolds helped them reclaim their ancestral hunting grounds. Peace altered the region. California residents arrived tomorrow. While dismounting, 2 rivers called. According to my scouts, good families want a farm, not mine. Sarah smiled. The silver mines performed fairly and brought enough income to distribute, but the Spanish gold remained forever buried in its flooded tomb. People who loved the land were slowly, honestly expanding the territory. Hard to imagine a year has passed, she thought. I sometimes expect to wake up in that burning house. Luke embraced her. You woke up. We both did. Better than we imagined. 2 rivers carried his family's wedding gift, a carved wood cradle with protection and hope symbols. Sarah felt the future moving in her womb and in the air as she stroked the smooth wood. The valley below was filled with new and native towns. The train would soon change things. But their basis of justice, respect for the country and its first peoples, and cooperation instead of conquest would last. Thomas's granddad was right, Sarah whispered. True treasure was never gold or silver. It was this. She pointed to the lush valley. Create something meaningful. Something worth fighting for, Luke said. Worthy of living. 2 smiley rivers repaired. Sarah was at peace as darkness fell over the area they defended. She carried 3 generations' dreams. Thomas's grandfather's wisdom, Thomas's love of nature, and Luke's fiery justice. Their child would continue those dreams and create new ones. The mountain hid mysteries. Love and bounty came from the earth as it grew untamed and free.